Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Tips and Tricks for Managing Social Media, presented by Catherine Sanders Reach. My name is Stephanie Phelan. I'm a marketing manager at MyCase, and I will be your host today. But first, I'd like to give you a few tips about participating on GoToWebinar. The webinar control panel is on the right-hand side of your screen. This is where you can control audio, chat with me, and submit questions. Please use the questions pane to submit your questions throughout the webinar. I'll be collecting those questions and saving them to ask Catherine at the end of her presentation, but please don't wait until the very end to shoot those over to me. Also note that these slides and the recording will be available by end of day tomorrow on the MyCase blog, and it will also be emailed to all registrants. When you close your webinar today, a very quick 5-question survey will pop up. All you have to do is answer those questions and you will be entered to win a $100 Apple gift card. You have a great chance of winning, so it is definitely worth it to take that survey. If you'd like to join the conversation on Twitter, the hashtag to use is #LawyersTweet2. This webinar has been approved by the Wyoming State Bar and the Florida Bar for 1 hour of general CLE credit. If you are a Florida Bar member, note course number 2486R, that's 2486R, to self-report your CLE. I'll also send this information out in the GoToWebinar chat pane. Today's webinar is hosted by MyCase, so before we jump into things, I'd like to give you a quick overview. MyCase is a web-based law practice management software that takes care of your daily practice requirements for calendaring, contact management, document management and templates, time and billing, client communications, custom workflows, and more in one solution at an affordable price. MyCase is priced for solo and small firms at just $39 a month per attorney and $29 a month per paralegal or support staff. We also offer MyCase websites for our customers. The one-time fee to set up and build your custom website is $9.95. Then there's a $50 per month fee to maintain and update your website. Our website team makes some beautiful websites, and they can build one for your law firm too. We use a modern, professional design built for your firm. The websites contain social media and blog integration, and best of all, a client portal, which is completely integrated with your MyCase software. So now you and your customers can log into MyCase directly from your website. Next up is payments. Are you accepting payments from clients online yet? You should be, and it's easier than ever. MyCase recently announced the addition of a built-in credit card payments feature to our payment service. MyCase customers can now accept online payments from clients using both credit cards and checking accounts, also known as eCheck or ACH payments, seamlessly through their MyCase account, no third-party integration required. Last but not least, we enjoy hosting educational events for professionals in the legal industry, and that's why we're all here today. So let me tell you a little bit about our presenter. Catherine Sanders Reach is the Director of Law Practice Management and Technology for the Chicago Bar Association. She also worked as the director at the ABA's Legal Technology Resource Center, providing practice technology assistance to lawyers for over 10 years. As you can see from her fancy headshot photo special effects, she enjoys playing with PowerPoint and has given her fair share of presentations. She has presented on the use of technology in law firms for national bar conferences and state and local bar associations. She served on the ABA Tech Show board and advises for law technology news. Prior to her work at the CBA and the ABA, she worked in library information science environments for a number of years. Catherine lives and works in Chicago, but don't be surprised if you see a redheaded woman in North Carolina that looks just like her. She has a twin sister in Chapel Hill. Catherine, thanks so much for being with us today. I'm going to let you take it over from here.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie, and welcome, everyone. Because you know a lot about me now, I'd like to get a sense of you online and joining us over the webinar. So we have a little poll, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask you basically kind of a baseline question. do you use any of the following social media platforms for business development? I'm making a distinction between using these for business development versus using these personally. I know a lot of people who use Facebook to share pictures of their grandkids and kids and stuff, but not for professional development. So that's the distinction. Do you use social media, and which ones for business development or professional development? Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Facebook and LinkedIn are all of the above. The reason I left Twitter out statistically, there are more lawyers using Facebook and LinkedIn than Twitter. So if you're a bold Twitter user, thank you.
Okay, great. So if everyone can please go ahead and submit your response there. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, and we'll see our results right away. Okay, just like that, the results are in. Do you use any of the following social media platforms for business development? 2% use Twitter. 10% are on Facebook. 35% use LinkedIn. 19% said Facebook and LinkedIn, and then 35% said all of the above. So the majority there is definitely LinkedIn and all of the above.
Okay, great. And that kind of, again, lines up with statistics I've seen about how people are using social media for business development. The first thing we're going to kind of talk about, and I'm going to talk about this in light of how I use social media, not that I am the be-all, end-all, but as a librarian, I feel like organization is really key. And so we're going to go through kind of a workflow and a process that you could look at as a way to go about getting more involved in using social media. I think starting out, one of the things is that social media is hard to pull into your day-to-day activities because we are pretty good at using email at this point, but for those who are kind of new to the digital age or they're not used to going and checking a whole other platform, sometimes we let things slide. I know that I have looked at my husband's phone, and he's really organized with his email. He keeps inbox 0. I've never seen anything like it in my life. But when I look at his Facebook notifications, he has hundreds he's never cleared out, which that drives me crazy. So I just want to talk to you about first looking at some of these platforms and finding out how to get it to send you notifications when someone's commented, when someone's liked, when someone sends you a request to connect, so that you don't ignore it in the first place. So one thing to note about LinkedIn and just reach, when you post something on LinkedIn, you actually have two options. You have the share and update, which is kind of the quick, here's what's going on today, or here's an article or something of interest that I have to share. When you go to share it, you can actually share it with the public or just your connections, or with the public plus Twitter. Now, I will tell you that Twitter is 140 characters. People tend to use a lot of hashtags, @symbols, things like that. So it doesn't always look right when you send it through other social media platforms. But those are things to keep in mind for what options you have with share and update. The other thing is there's that option to write an article. When you write an article, it's more of a blog post. And the nice thing is those blog posts are then kept with your social media profile in LinkedIn, so that when people go to look at your LinkedIn profile, your articles are there, almost like you're blogging within LinkedIn, and it also gets shared out through the news feed. It tends to be stickier. People tend to react more to those. I think it just LinkedIn is trying to reward you for your efforts. So that's one thing to note with LinkedIn. The other thing is, I know that I have gotten messages from LinkedIn, or I've sent someone a message and not heard back from them for months. And so I know that these people are probably more accustomed to getting emails. I was talking to someone the other day, and she said something about we need to be omni communicators, which cracked me up. But the reality is, yeah, we're getting messages from Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, email, Snapchat, text messages, and probably I've got 4 or 5 other places I can get messages from. So it's really, really hard to keep up with all that. So if email is a place you already feel comfortable with, and LinkedIn, if you go up into your avatar, which is the picture of you on the far right-hand side, and then you click on your settings. There's a whole section on communications, and one section called email frequency. Go through that email frequency and check the boxes to get emails when someone likes or comments. That's important because that way you can then see who liked or commented on a post. You can respond back to them if necessary. Also get email messages when someone has requested to connect. If you're the kind of person who very rarely checks LinkedIn, and then you go and see, oh, well, there's, 150 people who've tried to connect with me, and then you have to go through and figure out, do I want to connect with them or not? That's going to be usually time consuming. It's much easier if you get it kind of one-off through email. At least that's what I found for myself. And then if someone sends you a message, I have that come to email. And then if you participate in groups, you can get messages through email. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, depends on how busy your networks are, but getting some of the stuff through email, because I'm already in email pretty much all day, especially for those things that I feel like I need to take action quickly, makes it really easy. If you tweet, then there's some settings you may want to consider. If you go to notifications or your settings, under email notifications, they have two. You'll see in the screenshot, there's some drop downs. I have selected by anyone, but the default is tailored for you. Now, for the purposes of this program, I've converted everything by anyone. I don't know what tailored for you is. I suspect it weeds out fake Twitter accounts and bots and things, and this may be a little too overwhelming. We shall see, but I don't necessarily want to leave it up to Twitter to figure out what's tailored for me. And I definitely want to see when anyone retweets what I have said or I've been mentioned. So I'll let you know how it goes. But I do get notifications when someone interacts with me on Twitter, just so that I can go ahead and follow up on Twitter. And then with Facebook, we're going to look at Facebook in two different ways. I've seen lots of attorneys use Facebook using a kind of personal Facebook page to do more professional development and actually put in that they're an attorney at X and Y law firm, and they use the personal profile as their more professional profile. If that's how you use Facebook, then go into notifications, and then you have a lot of granular options here. If you click on important notifications about you or your activity that you've missed, you'll get emails, but you can actually go down and see what notifications you've turned off and turn them on. So some of you may want to turn on if someone posts on your timeline or you get a friend request, you'll get an email notification. If you find that you're getting too many emails from Facebook, in the actual email itself, look at the bottom and it'll tell you how to stop that notification from coming. If you're using Facebook professionally, so you've created a page in Facebook, unfortunately your options for notification aren't all that granular. So you go into notifications, and then in the email settings you can get basically all notifications except the ones you unsubscribe to or important notifications. And again, if it's a professional page, the thing is, and I don't think you have to fear this yet, but a lot of brands get a lot of interactivity from the public. So think about airlines. Think about other big companies where people are trying to interact with that brand in order to complain about the service, which again I hope is not happening with the social media for lawyers, and I don't anticipate that it will. But one of the things is if somebody goes and complains about American Airlines on American's page and either Facebook or they tweet at them or whatever, and then they don't respond immediately, then it can get ugly pretty fast when people get upset that they're not being responded to. So the response time is very, very fast. This again, not saying this with lawyers, but it is something to think about. To ignore someone entirely who's made a comment or said something is rude and could potentially get them upset. Just depends on the kind of practice area you have and what you're using this for. So we're going to ask some questions of you. And the next one is, Stephanie, if you can open that poll.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part about updating or interacting with social media sites? You don't have time, you don't have content to post, you find the platforms confusing, or it's not that big of a deal, I just don't see enough return on investment for my efforts.
Okay, great. That poll has been launched, and we'll give it just a few more seconds for people to vote. So please go ahead and select your response there. And it looks like the majority has voted. So I'll go ahead and close the polls. We'll share our results. Okay. Immediate gratification. Results are in. What is the hardest part about updating, interacting with social media sites? 32% said no time, so that is the majority. 23% said no content. 16% said it's just too confusing. And then 29% said it isn't that it's hard, just not seeing the ROI for their efforts. So is that about what you anticipated to see, Catherine?
It is, and so I'm hoping that I can speak to no time, no content, and ROI. I may not be able to make it less confusing because, frankly, what I'm talking about may actually create some confusion. But here's the good part. You have a handout, and in the handout, I've put hyperlinks, I've put links to how-to videos, I've put all sorts of information in the handout for you so that don't panic if I go through something fairly quickly and you're like, I don't understand even how that works. One of the things with technology is if it sounds like it might be a useful thing, and most of the products I'm going to talk about are free, go and play around with them, see if it works for you. Sometimes an interface doesn't make sense to you. Sometimes, it just isn't going to fit with how you do things, but you can at least give it a shot. So first thing that I want to talk about is automation. And I will mention that I've seen some people use automation to their detriment, and it's often been on Twitter so that they have automation saying things like, when someone sends me or follows me on Twitter, then they automatically get a response that says, thanks for following me on Twitter, please follow my company. Well, if you're not very active on Twitter and you have an auto response that says that, but publicly, then I've actually seen people's Twitter feeds where that's the vast majority of their posts, which is kind of funny, but probably not the way that you want to be seen. The other thing is having auto thanks for the retweet. Those kind of things are not necessary anymore, and Twitter's gotten a lot better about making the interface easier to kind of be responsive. It shows the inline graphics if you post a link and things like that. So a lot of this automation for Twitter especially, I think people used early, but now it's probably not so important anymore. The other thing to note is some of this automation will let you send messages to multiple platforms. In my estimation, Twitter, and fortunately many of you are not using it, but Twitter has its own vocabulary, its own kind of culture, and because it's restricted to 140 characters, when you send a tweet to other social media platforms, sometimes it looks a little funny and vice versa. So just, again, keep that in mind. So there's a number of automation tools out there. The one that's been around and probably is most appropriate for social networks is a product called If This Then That. It's that IFTTT. And some of you may have used it before, but they just keep adding channels to it. And what a channel is something like Feedly or Twitter or Facebook or Yammer or LinkedIn. And so it allows you to create, I can't remember what they call it. They keep changing the name of it, but basically it allows you to kind of stitch together these products that don't talk to each other normally. And so with IFTTT, say, for instance, and I'm going to show you some of these products, so don't panic, but there's a platform called Feedly where I can get a lot of information sent to me. I can say that if I stored this in Feedly, send it to Evernote, which is where I store information for longer term. Or if I'm in Feedly and I want to automatically tweak an article or send it to Facebook, if I tag it with a specific tag in Feedly. So without having to do much more than go through your Feedly feed, you can set up the IFTTT to automatically post for you, which is very useful. So again, depending on the platforms you use, and we're going to go over a number of these kind of organizational tool platforms, you may find that you can automate some of this stuff and still retain authenticity. And I'll probably mention this word more than once, but authenticity basically to me means that you're not over using bots and other things to automate your processes, and that you're actually doing some curation and thought. So just be careful not to over automate, but some of this can be very helpful, especially with things like tweet an article or put it on Facebook when I've tagged it, because that was an effort that I took and I know what the outcome is. So don't get it too automatic. The other workflow automation tools that are out there, Zapier, which has some of the social platforms, but it's actually a little bit more business service oriented. Clio's on there, Basecamp's on there, HelloSign's on there, so a little bit more business, but they do have some ways to interact with social. And then a new one is Flow, and it's Microsoft Flow. It's built into Office 365, and it's, again, trying to automate between Microsoft Office and other products on the market, so you can interact with Twitter, WordPress, Wunderlist, Facebook using Microsoft Flow. So say if I created an email and I wanted to send it to Facebook, you can integrate Outlook and Facebook based on a kind of a recipe. Interestingly, though, in Microsoft Flow, they don't have LinkedIn listed as a platform, which is interesting since Microsoft owns it. And the other one on the list is an iPad workflow tool called Workflow, if you're interested in these kinds of things. So moving on to dashboards, and there's different products on the market that are designed specifically to try to help you manage social media. And this is especially useful for people who have multiple social media accounts. And so you may have multiple Twitter accounts, you may have multiple Facebook accounts, or you may have accounts on multiple platforms. But managing all of those and even just visiting each site individually can be time consuming, thus why things like HootSuite were created. And so what HootSuite does is it helps kind of organize all of your different social media platforms. So in this screenshot, you can see that I've created a Twitter board that shows me all the new messages in my home feed, anything that I've been mentioned, any direct messages and tweets that I've sent. Then the next tab over is tweets that I favorited. Then I've got my LinkedIn. I have to admit, I bailed on Google+. It was just too much for me to handle, but at the time I was using Google+. My Facebook groups, you can use it to pull in Evernote content, RSS feeds, which we'll talk about. But however you want to use it, the nice thing is HootSuite can help you create a dashboard where you look at all of this in one place. But really where the big strength for me in HootSuite is where it helps me schedule posts to all of my social platforms in a nice little organizer. So if you had a block of time to spend creating a series of posts, you could do that at the beginning of the week, and then you could schedule them so that they don't all come at once. I'm sure many of you have seen people who tend to use social media in kind of bursts, and then they're silent for a long time. You're not going to get as much engagement if you aren't a little bit more methodical about it. So again, with HootSuite, you can go in and you can create in the software. It's actually not software, it's software as a service, so it's browser based. They do have apps and everything like that, but you go in, you schedule out a lot of different posts, and then you can time it, or you can say, send this for the best time that it would get the engagement that I'm looking for this day, which that's one of my favorite features. They have this little Chrome plugin, so if I'm surfing the web, I see an article that I think would be useful, and I want to send it to Facebook and LinkedIn, then I click the little Chrome plugin, and it says, lets me write a little bit about the article, shortens the link for me, and then I can say send now or send at best time. And what that does is it makes a determination based on how many people are going to see it, what the best time would be to send it to different social media platforms. This is based on analytics and statistics that they have, and it's great intelligence. It's built in, and this is for the basic use, it's a free product. I think you're limited on the number of platforms you can put in here and some of the features, but I've never been such a power user that I needed to pay for it. I think if you have a marketing director or a marketing person, there's probably some features that they'd like to see in there for the pay. But HootSuite is something that I use, again, to kind of see it all at a glance, get things scheduled out. The other thing that I found that it's really useful for, Twitter has no way to edit a tweet. And so if I schedule a tweet to go out, I will go back and review them and make sure that I didn't have a typo, which I've done, and everybody has, and people are pretty forgiving, but it's nice to be able to go back and edit that before it goes out. So again, just in the same way that some people have realized they need to set a little wait and don't let this email go out for 5 minutes, which gives you just enough time to realize I just hit send and I forgot to scrub out a bunch of the message that I'm forwarding, or did I spell that right, or did I attach that, or whatever. HootSuite helps you kind of keep yourself in check if you need to. And then HootSuite has plenty of competitors. They're in your materials. There's products like Spout Social, Every Post, and Buffer, and there's actually a link that I put in that compares the features of those different products. So social media is about sharing your knowledge, and thus you need to be knowledgeable. The thing is, you're probably very knowledgeable about your practice area and about law, but you have to be able to, if you're trying to communicate with your clients and potential clients, then you're going to need to use their vocabulary and think about, what is it about what I'm learning and my knowledge that's going to resonate with them. And so to me, it's about developing that knowledge base and then getting this content basically fed to you all the time so that you can start reading it, digesting it, and regurgitating it in a way that makes sense and is important to the people that you're trying to reach through your social media platform. And so a couple of different things about getting content. First, you need the resources, and then you need a way to get it, and then you need ways to keep it and organize it and push it back out. So that's what we're going to look at now. There's some resources that I find incredibly useful for getting legal intelligence. So if you're communicating about what's going on in the world of law, JD Supra Business Advisor has experts and lawyers writing about corporate, small business, and personal matters, and they actually divide it up by that. So if you're in a big firm serving corporate clients, they have a kind of streamlined area that you look for content like that. If you tend to do consumer work, then they have an area for that. And then you can subscribe via email to their digest, or you can follow them on Twitter or get their Facebook, or subscribe to RSS feeds and other ways of getting the information sent to you, which to me is one of the big things. Most people don't have time to go visit all of these sites. What you want to do is again, have this content come to you. So you establish what's good content, what's going to be hitting the mark in terms of your needs, and then having it come to you, and then, of course, making some time to actually review the content. Another one that I like very much, they're out of the UK, but they actually have global news, is called Lexology. Lexology has all sorts of like little hot topic places like bring your own device and virtual currencies. So you could look for the hot topics and subscribe to those, or you can do a search. You can narrow your results by jurisdiction. And this is primarily content from large law firm attorneys who are writing for this. JD Super is as well, as is Mondac, which is just another similar type of service. It's international in scope. They have legal, accounting, regulatory, and commercial issues, and you can subscribe to free news alerts based on region and then topics and subtopics. Another one that I find interesting from an intelligence perspective is it's a Google custom search called Fee-Fi-Fo Firm. And what Google custom search is you actually go into your Google account and you go just Google custom search. And you can actually create a custom search that only searches certain websites. And so what someone did is go through, and I think there's it's 4,700 law firm websites, probably more at this point, where they've put them all in a Google custom search, and then you can use Fee-Fi-Fo search to basically search just across those law firm websites. So why would you want to do that? Well, because law firms are publishing all sorts of great content on their website. It's a great way to get kind of what's happening in the legal world. You can also get press releases and all sorts of stuff. So it's just another way to kind of do research. It's a little bit more difficult to subscribe to Fee-Fi-Fo search, but it's just a useful resource for you. And then finally, the law journals, the Legal Scholarship Network at SSRN. SSRN is the Social Science Research Network. If you go to that, you can subscribe to it, and those are more law reviews and academic writing, but a lot of times it's very interesting content. Many of you may actually blog or aspire to blog or read blogs, but the blog directory and search tool, specifically from Justia, the ABA Journal blog directory is really useful, but the one from Justia I absolutely adore, because when you go into the blog, you can search for search terms across all these different legal specific blogs, but they've also created a directory. So you can go to different directories by practice area, by jurisdiction, by law school. And so I could go into the animal law practice area in Justia blog search and see who all's blogging about animal law, and then I could subscribe to getting just specific blog updates for the different blogs that I thought were particularly good, or I can get a subscription and subscribe to everything that is an animal law blog that's in the directory. So you have a lot of granularity in terms of how much content you get, what type of topics that you're subscribing to. And they have all sorts of, there's law professors and appellate lawyers and whole practice groups and tons and tons of topics that people are basically publishing kind of cutting edge legal information, and it's a great way to get content to come to you. Justia also has if you go to the site in the blog search, there's a little button for, actually you can see it in the screenshot, legal birds, and you can see what lawyers are tweeting if you want to start using Twitter and figure out who to follow. That's a great way to keep up with who's tweeting other than trying to search through Twitter. So that was legal news, and then looking at the blog directories, then we have kind of more general newsy news. So there's Jurist Legal News, and ABA Journal and Law.com and Justia are all putting out kind of what's going on in legal news, generally more associated with case law, things like that, although the ABA Journal tends to focus on, if you're interested in disciplinary cases and lawyers making mistakes, they're really great about posting those things. At any rate, Justia, again, kind of comes to mind because one of the things they do is they let you subscribe to updates of cases by court. So I can get a daily email that basically updates me on what opinions have been published in the Illinois Appellate Court for the 2nd District. It gets really, really granular. So that's something, if you want to kind of get a sense of what cases are being handed down in your Supreme Court or appellate courts, district courts, federal courts, you can go and sign up for that to keep up with it. And then the general aggregators, just you can actually go into Google News and do a keyword search and hit subscribe to this, and every time they've added new content or the index is updated with new content, you can get an email or you can have it fed to your RSS feed reader, which we'll talk about. So that's another place to get news. As you're probably aware, there's a lot of news where the fact sets are different. So it's always, I like Google News and Yahoo News and Bing News for the ability to search for a particular headline and then see treatment from not just U.S. papers, but international papers as well, and news, just to try to match the facts and make sure everything is as I can get as much information as I possibly can about the topic. If you're a iPhone or an Android user, there's tons of apps to help you keep up with a lot of this content. Frankly, from a workflow perspective, I probably do the vast majority of my information consumption and pushing out through social media from my phone, because my downtime is when I'm on the train twice a day. So think about when you may have some time to kind of digest the information and regurgitate it, and you can do this from your phone. Almost everything has an app these days, or the ability to get it on the web. So some of the legal news apps are American Journal, the American Lawyer, or the ABA Journal, the American Lawyer. The one that is not legal specific is Flipboard, and Flipboard is a pretty amazing product on its own. There's a web version. I only had ever used it as an app before, again, I was preparing for this program and looked it online. Flipboard, just for the basic app, I went in, I said, here's the topics I'm interested in, and it starts throwing content at me through the app, and then I would say, yes, I like this, with a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then over time it would start giving me more and more appropriate articles based on my interests. Then from that, I can share it, I can save it, I can comment on it. But as I went to the website and looked at it more thoroughly, I found out that you can create your own news magazine and let other people follow it. So Adriana Linares, who's the chair of ABA Tech Show this year, her company, Law Tech Partners, has a magazine that's aggregating information and news that now I'm following on Flipboard, and as I see those things, I can push them out to my social channels. So I'm following someone I trust who's aggregating content and curating content, then I'm further curating it for my audience. So this, again, is what we're looking for, is to make sure it's not about the quantity, but the quality of the information that you're pushing out. And this is more and more important with as much information. I mean, we used to say it was like drinking from a fire hose. I think now it's trying to, drink the ocean. It's so much information out there, so much of it is questionable, and it's really an opportunity for you to turn the tables, to provide good information, and you're going to have to figure out a way to consume it to get it back out there. So another place to aggregate all this news. So if you remember, we talked about things like the ABA Journal and the Juris Legal News and the blog searches. There are things that have been around forever and ever called news aggregators, and there's been a number on the market. A lot of people used Google Reader, and then Google got rid of it. And full disclosure and warning, Google has a habit of making you like something and then getting rid of it. But at any rate, Feedly is a great alternative to Google Reader. If you just gave up on RSS feeds, you might want to go back, because Feedly is very friendly, and basically you can go and subscribe to getting content from specific websites or by topic. And then you can organize and aggregate that information. You can have it displayed in either as a traditional feed, so it's just headlines. I can save it, I can share it, it gives me lots and lots of options. I can share it with HootSuite or directly with a social media platform. I like to share to HootSuite or Evernote. HootSuite because, again, is that timing issue. It knows what time is best to send something out for maximum viewability. Although, well, anyway, I won't say it. Seemingly tweeting at 3 o'clock in the morning gets some results too, but I guess you have to be very popular on Twitter to do that. Feedly is one, and then the other is a product called Netvibes. And Netvibes, basically, they're very similar. Netvibes is a dashboard and has some more features and bells and whistles, but it's really in how you want this stuff displayed. I'm kind of old school. I liked iGoogle. And so I kind of like this card concept where I can see the different websites and blogs that I follow, and then I can see, here's the headlines. If I don't, and then they start dropping off. So if I don't read older content, it's just not going to appear in my little cards. And so I don't have the stress of going, oh my gosh, I haven't read my Feedly feed in 10 days and now there's thousands and thousands of headlines. This actually just kind of goes, oh, here's the top headlines for, today. And if I don't read them, life goes on. And just like Feedly, you can go through and share directly from this platform. You can read the articles and all of that. And then finally, I probably mentioned Evernote 150 times so far because I love it. And so what Evernote is basically a way to save everything. There are other products on the market that let you do this, Pocket and OneNote, but trying to at least kind of keep myself using one platform for storing information. If I see an article that someone emailed me, I can send it to Evernote. If I see it on Feedly or Netvibes, I can send it to Evernote. If I see it on the web, I can see it to Evernote. If I want to send myself a reminder to look something up or a topic idea, I can send myself a voice note through Evernote. So Evernote will take anything and store it for me wherever it comes to me from. So for that reason, I like to be consistent and use Evernote. The other thing is, if you're a blogger, if you like to write articles or if people ask you to write for them, Evernote's great because as you see content that tends to be something that you have an interest in, send it to Evernote. And so what I'll do is, for instance, I write a column for the CBA record. So I'll just send content that I think might be useful topically to Evernote, and then when I need to go write my column, I'll kind of scan through what I've put in Evernote, and that will usually launch me into an idea, and then I've got kind of the research already done, so it doesn't take nearly as much time. So again, for that reason, I think Evernote is a great kind of trapper keeper to save everything. The other nice thing about Evernote is that you can save full page content. So for things that may disappear from the web or become fee-based after a certain number of clicks, things like that, if you want to save the full text of the article, you can do that in Evernote. Speaking of time management, I'll go a little faster. So when you're looking at time management, it's kind of a combination of the automation, but also it's really just about getting things done in a way that you can assimilate it into your other activities during the day. So this is kind of a combination of time management or automation, but it's a product called Delirium, and you can send an RSS feed. So if you have a blog that's particularly apropos, if you have a blog on WordPress or Blogger or Wix or wherever, all blogs have RSS feeds or feeds coming from them. And so you get the feed and you say, every time I add a blog post, automatically send it to my Twitter, my LinkedIn, and my Facebook. And the free version lets you send it up to 3 different destinations. This just helps automate that process so that you don't have to remember to go and push out to all your social channels through the blog. In WordPress, there's an add-on for it. In Weebly, there's a way to do it. In Wix, there's a way to do it. But I just find Delirium actually does a better job of digesting the content and the headline and sitting it out. So that's one thing I use to keep myself sort of sane. The other thing is using some sort of task management tool. And so project management tools abound these days. There's Basecamp and Trello and Asana. But really, if you don't plan to do something, you probably won't. It keeps sitting in the back of your mind that you intend on doing things. So if you actually turn your activities into a project and use a task management tool, you can break down these projects like I want to blog more or I want to interact more with my social media, and schedule tasks with deadlines so that you're actually going to do those things. And most of them integrate with your Outlook calendar or your Google Calendar if that's the thing that you tend to look at. But it's really more about checklists, due dates, and possibly assignments. So it depends on if you've got somebody who's helping you out or you want to have them be more active. And one that I'm particularly in love with right now, but I try a lot of products, is Wunderlist. And the reason I'm liking it is because I can have kind of ideas for programs, ideas for blog posts, ideas for sending tweets, but also just a checklist, and it integrates with my Outlook calendar. I can share it with other people. I can assign tasks to other people. Of course, they have to use Wunderlist as well. But it's a way to, I can send emails, I can send content to Wunderlist, and then remind myself to read the article, digest it, and resend it. So we're rounding the corner here. We have another poll question really quickly. And Stephanie, if you can pull this up, just getting to kind of goal setting, I really feel like if you don't have a goal, you're not going to do this. So your goal for using social media is reaching existing clients, reaching potential clients, maintaining your reputation, or because you feel like you're supposed to be.
Okay, great. That poll is live. So if you haven't yet, please go ahead and mark your response on the poll. And we'll just give it a few more seconds. People are voting quite quickly. And so I'll go ahead and close the polls. Okay, and results are in. My primary goal for using social media is 6%, so very small amount, said reach existing clients. 48%, that's our biggest number, reach potential clients. 36% establish and maintain reputation or professional development. And 10% because I don't want to be left behind. So I'll go ahead and close those.
Okay. Great. So while I believe that social media can be very instrumental in reaching potential clients and establishing your reputation, obviously there's a human element that we cannot ignore. And so I just threw this in here about virtual marketing coach platforms. These are somewhat new in the world, and so I thought, well, you may be on top of your social media, but that sometimes is not getting you potential clients, because sometimes that is a face-to-face thing. People may know about you online, but you still, eventually want to meet up with them. And I can't tell you how many people I've kind of known or followed in social media and then met in person. And so it's kind of all, I guess, a circle of life from virtual to in person and what people call meet space. But sometimes we meet people virtually and then we meet them in person. Sometimes we meet them in person and start following them virtually. So the virtual marketing coaches tend to be a little bit more focused on the human element. But there's probably more on the market. These are the ones that I've kind of identified or been made aware of. And so they're electronic coaches. And these are, this first one, Law Accountability, is a kind of social media marketing professional development coach. His name is Ari Kaplan. Many of you may have heard of him. And this is cloud-based software designed to help you with business development. And essentially every week You watch a 10-minute video. It gives you ideas for how to raise your visibility and reach out to others. And then you get 3 tasks based on that week's theme. And they give you scripts and everything like that, but you basically have three tasks you complete. And then the accountability part is that you have an accountability colleague who makes sure that to ask you, have you done that? So a lot of times, with life coaches and business coaches, one of their things is you have to be accountable to somebody. Otherwise, it's all good intentions, but once you have to respond to somebody, it tends to get you to do it. So that's part of the law accountability. You can also there's a gamification. You get point value. So if you have a law firm and you want people to participate in it, they can actually compete against each other to compete to get points when they've completed the task. And there's calendar integration and all sorts of other things built into the platform. It's $39 per user per month for 12 users, and then it's more for larger firms. But it's an interesting concept, especially if marketing and professional development doesn't come naturally to you and you'd like somebody to help you and then keep you on task. I think this is a very interesting concept. Similarly, there's a product on the market called Prac Builder. It's a slightly different concept. What it does is automatically enrolls all your professional contacts into a business development plan, and it basically crafts a business development plan around your contacts, and then it gives you a scheduled list of relationship building activities, and you pick which ones. So it'll say something like, email a happy holidays note to all of your colleagues who are alum from your law school, something like that. So it gives you little hints and tips and tricks to get things done. Again, if you're not someone who comes up with this stuff naturally, I think this might be useful. They give you email templates. They'll let you do a customized client development plan. This isn't social media. A lot of this could be pushed through social media, I think, but also just helping you kind of build your professional network. And then the last one is a guy, Steve Fretson. He's here in Chicago. He's developed this platform called Origination Station, and he has these videos that you can watch, and then basically it's $99 a year. You watch the video and then try to act on what he's suggested that you do. And so that's it for those. Like I said, I just thought I'd throw them in there because I find these interesting. The other thing is the social media management services. These are somewhat new on the market as well. I just demoed Scroll Digital last week, and what these products are designed to do is to help bring in content, help push out content through your social platforms, and manage a firm's social or online presence. So Scroll Digital will actually create content for you. They have law school students and grads writing content that you can then use to push out. But otherwise, if you have a firm marketing director, they can use this tool to push firm content from blogs out to social media. It goes to each individual lawyer's social feed. So it's not like it's all from the firm. I think that's a key piece, because when we talk about authenticity, I'm not a huge fan of ghostwriting or having someone else write your content. I really think it needs to be a voice that you develop for yourself. But in the same way that if you're going to be more likely to follow me as a person because of my unique voice rather than the Chicago Bar Association. So I think people tend to follow people rather than firms, so that I think Scroll helps with that because a lot of times the firm will be very active, but the individual attorneys may not be. And similarly, Clearview Social does pretty much the same thing. They have some differences in whether it's opt-in or opt-out, whether the content gets pushed out through the social channels. in your materials, there's a link. Bob Ambrosi did a great kind of review of Scroll Digital and compared it with Clearview Social, talked about this notion of authenticity and also needing to review the content before it goes out. I'm in complete agreement with Bob on that. That said, any help you can get, if this is something that's in your goals that you want to do, that you want to get more active on social media, there's a lot of different tools on the market to kind of help with that. So Stephanie, that's what I've got.
Excellent.
Do you have any announcements?
I have some questions, but thank you so much, Catherine. I was taking notes myself. Those were some great tips, so thank you. For those of you who have to leave us now before questions, please take note of 3 things. When you close your webinar, a quick 5-question survey will pop up. All it takes is answering those survey questions, and you're entered to win for the $100 Apple gift card that we give away every month. So you can go get that new iPhone. If you are a Florida Bar member, CLE course number 2486R, that was chatted out to the through the control panel as well for your CLE. And a few people asked about receiving the content. You will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the blog, where with the MyCase blog, where you'll find these slides, the webinar recording, and the Apple gift card winner. And we do have some fantastic questions, Catherine, so I'm going to start off on those.
Great.
Okay. What is the most successful type of advertising I can use for a small law firm wanting to get the word out to locals?
In order to answer the question, I would actually need to think about further refining that demographic. So you said small law firm to locals. The next thing you need to think about is locals in my area, obviously, but if you're in a city, is that city and suburbs? Is that suburban? Is that local? Then who amongst the locals are your potential clients? So you have to think about, and I worked with an attorney who was kind of starting her practice, and she lived in Evanston, and she really didn't even know what practice area she wanted to practice. I said, well, think about who's in Evanston. We have a huge university there. What are the things that typically come up for students? Might be DUI defense, it may be landlord-tenant, it may be drug offenses, civil rights issues. Think about it, that if you're starting a practice, if you've already got an existing practice and you know what type of law you practice, then who are the people who use your services and how do you target them? So if it's a general practice, you still are answering questions for specific people. So what I would suggest you do is, what problem do you solve for people? Figure out who that demographic is, and then figure out, do they listen to the radio? Are they on social media? Do they read a specific newspaper? That's the kind of thing that I would suggest going through that exercise to figure out how to reach locals.
Okay, great. And we will go about a minute or so over, since we started about a minute late. Next question, how do you feel about Instagram? I noticed you didn't mention it and wanted to know your take on it.
My feeling about Instagram is that there are a whole lot of people who use it. I don't personally use it. That doesn't mean it's not a good platform. I also didn't mention Pinterest or Snapchat or some of the other platforms that are out there. I think you need to look at what are your demographics in terms of age. And even though I think Instagram actually scales up a little bit from age, you've got things that typically are more attractive to millennials and digital natives. And I guess more importantly, are your potential clients using these platforms? And so with like Pinterest, if you look at the demographics, which you can Google and get all sorts of interesting information, Pinterest is, I think something like 75% women. And so if you have a practice that focuses on child care or custody or anything like that, that may be a great platform for you. So think about, again, who are you serving and are they on Instagram? And then how do you reach that market? But I mean, if whatever platforms are out there that you feel like you can interact with potential clients, I don't think there's any barriers.
Perfect. And it looks like we just have time for our last question. Thoughts on posting the same article on different social media platforms at the same time?
Unless your potential clients and followers are pretty rabid, they're not going to see it all at the same time. In fact, they're more likely to miss them on one or two platforms or all three. So I have no problem with posting the same content on multiple platforms, and there's no harm in reposting content uh, that you've already posted 6 months down the line, as long as it has, either renewed relevancy or a longer timestamp in terms of the usefulness of the data. Go ahead and repost it. Online publishers do this all the time. They post across social media channels and they repost content all the time. And most people are going to miss it, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Got it. Okay. Great. Well, we are out of time, Catherine. Thank you to everyone who joined us. This was definitely a popular, hot topic. And happy holidays to everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Catherine, for hosting. And we'll see you next month.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks all.
Thanks all. Bye bye.
Bye.